welcome to a flight video. This one's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a lot more somber and slightly educational, more from the perspective of Mother Nature, especially with the live weather. So this is being recorded on Halloween night. Hopefully, it'll be up very shortly. I'm gonna make this more of a quick turnaround, and the main reason is this. So this is the Philippines here. You see this big circular cloud? Well, that is a Super Typhoon, known as Super Typhoon Goni, and it has been the strongest tropical storm this year to make landfall. This game doesn't obviously create the full eye like you probably would see from the space images, but you kind of see it trying to recreate the circulation here. To give you perspective, when this typhoon made landfall, it had about winds around 185 miles per hour. It has been a Category 5. It is now a Category 4 of winds around 150. And the main reason is, I think the water is a little cooler here than when it formed its most strength over here. And I think this actually might be another tropical storm here, I believe. It's been very active right through here right now. But, and I'm going to go, and the main point of this video, I'm going to go over a little bit, not just how dangerous this storm is. I think everyone knows how dangerous the storm is, but how it's very... it's much more negative impact here in the Philippines and most other places in the world, just because it is not as developed as, let's say, Florida, or let's say like the U.S. or Taiwan, or even hit Japan, just in terms of like emergency services, infrastructure and everything. And we're gonna go back, and the reason the storm is, it really formed quickly for one, and B, it's bringing back a lot of memories about. I think it was about 9 years ago, with Typhoon Yolanda there, but known as Haiyan to the rest of the world. So I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna try a couple things here. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna take off here. Let's try. Let's see. I'm just trying to see what is. 3 minutes. Okay, that's not far. So, I see. Look at that. I don't know how well this is going to go, to be honest. I just kind of want to see the element of the storm. What's this? I'm just trying to get a sense here. 8 minutes, maybe. We'll try this. Actually, hold on. Yeah, so we're going off a coast. And my hope of this is maybe get a sense, so it's about 11 minutes. We'll see how this goes. I may have to abandon mid-flight and then restart. I may start from back at the Manila National Airport in Manila. The storm right now, it is in Manila, but it's obviously more the outer bands and not as close to the eye. The eye is still over the Pacific, but the main part of the storm is turned across land now. So we're going to try here on these eastern islands, and we're going to go over this weather storm. Anyway, so the reason why the storm is caused a lot of concern all of a sudden is, I mentioned earlier about the infrastructure and so forth, but it's one of the strongest storms since Haiyan. Haiyan was deadly. Let me phrase Haiyan. It's Haiyan. So it's Haiyan. Haiyan. I apologize for mispronouncing. That's to give you perspective how bad that was. That storm killed about 7,300 people, and destroyed, really wiped out I don't know, provinces, right? Wipe out a few small areas. So it was a massive storm. And the thing about this storm, it's still, once it gets through the Philippines, it's going to weaken through the Philippines, mind you. And then it's going to go back right in open waters, heading to basically Vietnam. And right now, the cone is pretty straight right at Vietnam. It's varied from maybe Da Nang to the southeastern coast, so obviously a good portion of the whole country. But and it's interesting how strong it is. I think they say it'd be a lot weaker by then, and definitely be around 100 miles. But this would be a good tropical storm. So, and it's not just one of the strongest storms this year. This is one of the strongest storms. Whoa. I hope that was a loading screen issue, because the wind just pushed my plane upwards. But anyway, so this has been one of the strongest storms actually recorded here. I'm pulling up some information here just to kind of go over this. So the strength of this is only tied or surpassed by a handful of storms. The most recently one was Hurricane Patricia in 15, which got to winds 215 miles off the coast of Mexico. I do remember that storm as well. These winds would actually presently the extreme landfall intensity occurs in the same part of the same country. Here you go. This is where it gets scary. Of Super Typhoon Haiyan, that cost $2 billion in damage. And I apologize. The city killed more than 6,300 people. There could be a sense. I've seen some death tolls fluctuate on that, and usually what that translates is like basically how it's measured, because obviously there's so much displacement. Since it's not, let's say.
Papa Uniform Delta Traffic Beechcraft Alpha Sierra.
Now,
Golf Sierra Kilo taking off runway 6 departing straight out.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Very intense. The wind, I can feel the wind, like the wind is definitely a factor right now. You can just see the waves are crazy. Again, this is the Microsoft game. You know, this isn't. In reality, we would never be able to pull this off. They would just not let us fly. We're gonna go up in the clouds. But I did kind of want to at least fly over this region. So, like, this is not a. I don't know if populous is the right word. Like, it's not a major city, but it is going to go over Manila a bit, and we'll go over that in a bit. But, you know, this is where a lot of the damage occurs. And you know, trying to see, like, you kind of get a sense here. You know, let's just zoom in. Like, you see, here's a good example. We're going to fly over this community. And this is why this storm is scary, especially from this part of the world. You see this, they're completely exposed. You know, it's a little beach community, and this is not like a rich area, it's a poor area. You know, this is not the major city, it's not developed like Manila or Cebu. No, these are very, you know, these aren't like built, these aren't like, you know, super strong buildings built for hurricanes and stuff, or hurricanes, typhoons. So, and that's where you get the storm surge, you get the strong winds that blew these buildings apart, and you look at the damage of Typhoon Haiyan. It looked like a bomb went off. Like, it just trees completely stripped bare. I mean, it was, like, it literally looked like a nuclear bomb went off the region. I'm gonna try. Yeah, they actually had another typhoon not too long. And I hope, because. And the thing about, and this is actually what gets a lot of similarities to why people get scared, and rightfully so. Oh, that caught me off guard.
Landing here.
Sorry, I gotta slow this down. There we go. This is actually a lot harder than it looks, I'm not kidding you. You can just hear the wind and stuff, and it's crazy. But anyway, so I'm pulling up the Typhoon, you know, Haiyan. I'm trying to see what's the thing. Way up and down, I just can't get a good balance right now. I'm like going down, it feels like, there we go. Yeah, I'm kind of like multitasking as well, like with my tablet, trying to get Yeah, deception. So yeah, yeah. Here's a good example. So these winds in Haiyan, it did reach 195 miles as well. I think it was around that when it hit. Yeah. So this is the downside. Actually, we're gonna let's just turn this off. All right. We'll turn this back on in a second. But yeah. So this is obviously more world, like I have to do this just to show it. You know, but there's a lot of these villages, little towns, small cities maybe, you know, that just, you know, it's like, you know, it's like sprawled out, but it adds up. So, you know, it's like, okay, 350 people here, 300 people there, a couple thousand over there. And basically, that's the worry. That's what happened basically 9 years ago. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 7 years ago. 13 is when it happened. And in November as well. That's very... So that storm reached peak on November 7th. So basically right before it hit the Philippines. And today's, you know, it's hitting November 1st. Obviously with the international date line. 31st here in the U.S. So, yeah, it's just... Wow. Yeah, so 10 minutes sustained winds, 145 miles. That's where the storm is at right now. Obviously, 1 minute sustained. So you have these wind variations, obviously, depending on the strength and you know, how long you can achieve it. And to say, we kind of just want to show you, because, you know, get a sense, like, you know, the Philippines has a series of islands. They're actually quite mountainous, even volcanic, actually. It's on the ring of fire. But, like, this part's where it gets scary, because this is definitely more the underdeveloped part. It's more rural, not as easy accessible, and there you go. And you see that once I turn that on, that's pushing the point crazy. So yeah, it really. I actually wonder how it determines the wind. I wonder if there's any instrument here that shows that. Crashing the plane. Let's see here. That doesn't look like it. Now, I guess the reason I want to do is we also see how it is in the flight simulator. And it's very intense right now, to be honest, flying this thing. But I didn't want to explain about the storm because it's like. And I get it, you know, here in the U.S., especially with everything going on this year, from COVID to the election, this is not going to be major news for us because it doesn't impact us. The Philippines is not a U.S. colony, you know, or anymore, is what I'm trying to say. You know, it was once a territory of the United States. But, you know, we a lot of people seceded and wanted to be independent after World War II. And because of that, it's more like... it's like weird. It's like a one-time ally. Won't go too far politically where that is nowadays. You know, I think just in the last decade between Duterte and Trump and just very different worldviews between the presidents, you know, have soured a bit. Definitely not like distance, but probably not as close as it was like during, like, say, 25, 30 years ago. But, you know, that happens all the time. You know, we'll see how things will come the next decade. But, like, with Haiyan, you know, the U.S. was heavily involved in aid and stuff to help them out. And sadly, it's probably going to be happening again. It would be really interesting to see what the final, like, you know, when the stuff clears. Because, you know, I'm going over more of a world part. But, you know, you still have other communities. I mean, all of this is being impacted. Like, all of this. Like, I think maybe down here. But this is the eye of the storm. This is going to go over this, heading into, you know, Manila. We'll fly over that a bit. Now, I only mean this in a scientific way. Benefit Manila is on the western side of these islands. So the storm has to go over land a bit, and it will weaken a bit. It won't be much, but at least will weaken. So at least from terms where the mat population is, you know, the biggest city that's about 25 million people, that will be okay. And and also I'm trying to bring awareness. This has been a very active storm season. You look at what's happened in Louisiana, multiple hurricanes hitting there. You look at right now in the Philippines, and not having the strongest storms ever recorded on record. And this is another typhoon. And this is like, they just had a typhoon. Granted, they get about 20 typhoons in a year. So and that varies extreme. It's a Category 1. Definitely no picnic. Probably a lot more manageable. When you get these categories, these super typhoons, categories of 4 or 5, just the same as like a major hurricane, that's where it gets scary. Okay, I'm gonna move this to Manila. I thought about landing, probably won't go well. This video's not ending though. We're just gonna reload, but this time in the city. See how it is, because that's more in the bands right now of the storm. Again, we're just kind of doing this to see how it's portraying, but I'm trying to educate, educate people about the storm, and to give you a sense of the size of the storm. Like, okay, let's just zoom in. All right, so this is from here to really about here is the Philippines. This storm. Now, actually, let's make it a little more comparable. I'm gonna see if there's a way I can easily pull up the size. A good example, Japan is about the size of California, square mile wise, I believe. Okay, so from the north of the Philippines to the south down here is about 1,150 miles. So let's say 1,200. Let's say round up to 1,200. Add 50 extra miles. You look at the storm. It's taken up about 2/3 of the country's size. Now, obviously, some of these, these are more just might be clouds and that's what's the storm, but it is part of the storm itself. Like it's almost touching the north part, and then you go down. And this is the southern edge right here. I don't think that's their islands. So that means it's taking up about 2/3 of it. So anyway, let's get back into. Yeah, we're just gonna just fly out. We'll do it. We'll try this. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, we're just gonna fly out of. Let's see how it goes. Oh, I don't think it has a live load. I'll turn that on once we land. Let's reload. So, but anyway, we're back to Typhoon Haiyan, and this is why it'll be very interesting how the storm it shows. But it's like so weird. You think of the worst like tropical storms, hurricanes and typhoons. It's not like it's like it's kind of like weird. It's not like it forms as a Category 5, let's say, like a hurricane. Like it starts in Africa and then around the Atlantic it forms. This is like it forms like Category 5 and stays that way, and it's out there and coming. Sometimes it's just so rapid. Like Hurricane Andrew, for example, that became a Category 5 hurricane. It was kind of like it was a hurricane or storm, but somehow it's just the water and everything's perfect, and it hangs out there a little bit, and it rapidly intensified this 5 storm, catching everyone in southern Florida off guard for like a day and a half, 2 days roughly, before landfall, and realized this is going to be a major hurricane. You look at Hurricane Katrina. When it actually hit Florida, it was actually a major hurricane. I think it was a Category 3 when it hit Florida, actually.
Cleared for takeoff runway 24 Beechcraft Sierra X-Ray Golf.
Let's get this baby going. Oh. Now, this is with not live weather. That doesn't look right, does it? Huh. Let's see. So I got thunder with partly cloudy skies. It's actually going to snow here in Manila. You know, let's okay. This doesn't look right. All right, we'll try load again. You know, we're at the mercy of how the game handles live weather. Yeah, so I am looking at Katrina. You know, that actually formed in the Caribbean, across Florida. I don't think it actually was a major hurricane. Most of it. No. Let's see here. Yeah, so actually it's just Category 1 hurricane that hit Florida. But then you get in the Gulf and it rapidly increased that Category 5. It doesn't take long. It's really crazy to see that. Alright, let's fix this. Try this again. It may not technically be there. We can try another runway in the middle. I'm going to link into the, probably in the description, but watch this documentary. It's actually on YouTube. Maybe I'll link it at the end. But anyway, it was uploaded like someone like, I think, National Geographic or Discovery Channel made a documentary on it. But, you know, it's kind of interesting. So, like, you know, there's like, you know, there's joint systems, you know, between Hawaii and Japan that are monitoring the storms. And, you know, even though they're all different agencies, they all kind of work together. But it's like, should the U.S. military monitor the storm? Okay, so it looks like in this game, it still thinks it's probably a lot more cloudier than it is right now. Yeah, I did look at the weather report not too long ago, and it showed cloudiness. Let's see. Do I need to ask for takeoff? No. All right. Take off briefly. Yeah, so it shows clouds to the east, like indicating there's something coming, but I think in reality it's a little more intense right now. See, it's got like thunder. Like it's like the game's confused, and this is the reason I want to do this video. This video also to see how the game is handling it. But you like see here, comparing like where we were to here, and this is a modern city. You know, you can just tell we've got a major international airport. I mean, I'd be frank, it's not considered like amazing, especially out there in Asia, you know, with its competition here behind Asia, Japan, and Singapore, and China for sure. But you know, major airport, a lot of traffic. Philippine Airlines, the main airline, does go to the U.S. to Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York City. It's weird. So I'm hearing thunder. You know, we've heard thunder, and yet it shows no signs. Now I'm sure if I keep going east, but this is not a fast plane, so we may just restart. But real quick, we kind of want to show just briefly the layout of here. So there's a few things about Manila that's interesting that I know. I haven't been here. I'm just kind of like repeating what I've read up on and stuff. So I guess this would be a little crude example, but you kind of look here. It's very congested. You can tell, you know, they're not like the nicest buildings by any means. I'm not being mean, just being honest. You know, it's just, you know, it's considered a developing country. And the big concerns you see here is like, you know, again, it's the infrastructure when it comes to a storm like this. So like, for example, it doesn't have the most prep sewage, draining, very well prone to flooding. Flooding happens quite a bit there when they get these storms. And you get a storm like this. Now, thankfully, I think it's moving pretty fast from the looks of it. So it won't be, let's say, you know, like what happened in Houston a couple of years ago when the hurricane just stopped and dumped tons of rain. But it's still a problem. It can easily start flooding these areas, especially the low areas that don't have much really where the water can't go anywhere to, you know, eventually might drain out back into the bay. Another example, these buildings, you know, they're not all well built. You know, you look at these buildings, you know, these are definitely skyscrapers, you know, cement, concrete, probably can handle the wind, especially because right now it's about 145-mile winds. I think they said it was downgraded to a Category 4. It's still very strong. You cannot mess with that kind of storm. But I think certain buildings can definitely, like, these buildings can probably handle it. Probably a lot of broken windows and stuff, but at least will be blown apart. But these buildings, I mean, unless in a Category 4 or 5, even a Category 3, easy can tear the roof off, and that's where it gets scary. And that's what happened with Haiyan. Haiyan went right through the central Philippines, hit Manila. Obviously it was weaker by then, but still a major typhoon. It was a super typhoon is what they call it, not major, super typhoon. And that's where you had so much death. Obviously, it didn't look like a bomb fully dropped off in Manila as they did in eastern provinces where the storm was. But that's where the issue is. And then just look at these other towns and stuff. So a little more. Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, so that's why there's a lot of concern right now. So I was kind of just re-looking up on Haiyan. It's really scary to see very similar paths. And it's not. I wouldn't say it's probably not. It's not like impossible unheard of. It's like it was like decades apart. Kind of like Houston or something with their hurricanes. And you got like a direct hit doesn't happen too often, but it's like having like 2 direct hits of super typhoons in 7 years. I mean, that's just sad to see. I hope for the best. That's all I can say. I mean, this point in the video is way to test out the technology in this game, but I'm trying to just inform you what is going on over there and how we need to be, mindful that that when it comes to storms and stuff, that isn't just what happens in the land, but a lot that happens in the Pacific. And you think about when these typhoons hit, they're hitting very major metropolitan areas and heavily dense areas throughout Asia. So like in Japan, sometimes eastern China. We'll see how this storm does when it goes east into the South China Sea, heading towards Vietnam. Same ordeal, into another populated country. And definitely not it's not just like a bunch of random islands with maybe like out in the middle of nowhere. No, it's a developed country. A lot of people in the congested city, especially if it hits Da Nang, major city in Vietnam. Oh, sorry. I meant to look in here. Let's see. I'm looking at my navigation. RPM's on high. Let's see. Let's take a look. No, let's see, that's altitude. It's like weird. It's like trying to capture the storm, but it's not. Alright, we'll do one more quick thing, and then we'll probably wrap it up. So I hope you guys learned something, especially about these more of the typhoons, the hurricanes in the Pacific. One interesting tidbit, and this is where it gets confusing. So, like Typhoon Haiyan is what we call it, and kind of what the main name for it. But the Philippines agency has also its own set of names, and they call it Typhoon Yolanda there. So sometimes you'll see that sometimes it'll be different names for the typhoons. I don't know why it's set up that way or how that happened, but it is what it is, I guess. From a U.S. perspective, we'll be calling it. Sorry, not Typhoon Haiyan. So from a U.S. perspective, we call it Typhoon Haiyan. So let's see here. So we were way over there. How about here? This looks tiny. Switch that to 5. Yeah, so it looks like since the storm is on this area. Yeah, so they're calling it Typhoon actually another column there. Alright. Find that name. Yeah, so I got an article, live update 16 minutes ago. So far, they picked up gusts of 165 miles Sunday. Obviously, the ones I mentioned earlier were kind of more like its peak, which was probably before it hit land. They're saying it's catastrophic wind damage. Yeah, let's see, this is where it gets set. Yeah, so there's sustained wind speed of 35 miles per hour. Gusts up to 165, so just that alone is going to cause massive damage, especially in these two provinces. Okay, so now we're on, I guess, more like the outer bands here. Alright, let's make this one. Why?
Romeo Papa 1-2 traffic Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf taking off runway 26 departing straight out.
That could have gone better. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong button. Yeah, here they got the winds, and it's pushing me down.
Don't sink. Don't sink.
There we go. I doubt they get the full gust ones. I doubt this plane can even fly in the air with that kind of wind. But it shows you, it's indicating strong winds in this game. It is really tough to fly in. So yeah, so this is their 18 Typhoon this year. Yeah, so they had Typhoon Blob not too long ago. Wasn't, from one perspective, wasn't super strong apparently, but did a lot of flooding. They still killed 22 people and forced back tens of thousands before moving on to the Yolanda, where it caused deadly landslides. Most people get that. Yeah, no, so this will give you perspective. Okay, sorry about that. This one is really blowing this one. You see, and this is where I want to talk about. This is why it's so deadly in the Philippines. That's what I really want to emphasize. Outside of what I just talked about in Manila, and I want to re-emphasize this from my earlier point. You know, like, these are just little villages, people out here. Like, they're just an island. Like, there's not like there's a highway, major interstate, or anything around here. You know, it's like very rural. So then, you know, you gotta think about how they're gonna get supplies there, you know, get people out evacuated. And this is why it gets so deadly in the Philippines, especially in these super typhoons in this eastern portion of the islands. Yeah, so according to this, they got air and rescue services getting ready. And then on top of that, it's also more complicated because they're stretched thin from COVID. And this is just, you know, this is just a sad year, to be honest. You know, I'm sorry this is kind of more of a depressing video. I'm more using educational, but just trying to give you guys, you know, again, I mentioned this point, just perspective and just how, you know, like how devastating these storms are. And I think I'll just say this. I get annoyed with the global warming arguments because people goes, well, you know, this hurricane season wasn't as strong as they're projected. I'm like, it isn't just the Atlantic hurricanes. You got Pacific hurricanes, which, you know, more times than not, they just kind of sit in the ocean unless it hits Hawaii, very rarely. Or it circles the coast and hits Mexico. You know, thankfully, just the way it's said doesn't hit. But the typhoons, it's like what I've been telling people for a while, just ran under circles. It's like, typhoon seasons have been very deadly the last 10 to 20 years. And it seems like, like Haiyan was one of the most strongest storms ever reported. And then we have another one 7 years later that's almost about the same size, same strength as that one. Then you had Hurricane Patricia in the Atlantic in 15. Like, it isn't just like the storms either, okay, only had like, let's say a handful of major storms, or it didn't hit, they're like, it didn't hit. Like, that's not the point. The point is how more frequent it's becoming, and that's what's scary. And that's what's causing, and then you look at countries like the Philippines, it was like several $1 billion of damage from Yolanda / Haiyan. We'll have to wait and see on this, and that's on top of the COVID issues they've had this year, the economy receding because of COVID. Just had another typhoon that did a bunch of flooding, and at the same time, this is also going to Vietnam, and they just had a typhoon that hit the Philippines, went to Vietnam, caused landslides. That's why I get frustrated with dealing with idiots like that. It's like, Christ, it isn't just what happened in the Atlantic, and let alone the last 5 years have sucked anyway. You don't need a super storm to cause so much damage. You can just park a storm over Houston and flood the hell out of it and cause several $1 billion in flooding damage, destroying neighborhoods, have to rebuild houses and everything. And then insurance says they don't cover flood damage anymore because that's what they did. That is a good example. I'm really high. I didn't mean to be this high. And I'm going to end this video here very shortly. Now, see, this one looks a little more developed. You got like a road here, but again, you think about it, it's miles from Manila. This is the only airstrip I found, that little thing. There's nothing over here that I know of. So next, you got a basic helicopter being sent because you can't land a plane over here. No, yeah, see, look. There's no other airstrips anywhere near here. And while I won't say it's heavily populated, it's enough people spread out here. It's like they're isolated. And, you got to send air and rescue it, basically by helicopter. So like we see the Coast Guard did in the Northern Katrina. So anyway, I'm kind of in this video on a rant. It's just like, the point is I'm trying to just, the thing I love about the Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's the real world, and they got real life weather, and it just kind of gives you perspective of what's going on. To an extent, we won't see the damage in the game. It isn't like, we're flying in a Super Typhoon, which would never ever happen in real life. But at least it gives you perspective, like how massive the storm is. Like, okay, we were on this plane. This is probably a good 30-40 minute flight just to get over here, let alone over here. That means the storm, and the eye is not even in it. The eye is somewhere over in the Pacific still. That means it's all the way over here. That's how much it's encompassing already. Let alone you go further, up north to about here, and then you go south. So that's what I'm trying to educate, especially in the size of the storm. Because like, you see some of the size of these typhoons. Actually, Hurricane Andrew, they get pretty big. Like Hurricane Andrew, powerful storm. Hurricane Andrew's like a quarter, a third. I think compared to Haiyan. That's just scary to think about. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed kind of my rant. I've learned a little bit about more about the storms and its impact in the Philippines, but also the region. I mean, Taiwan gets hit pretty hard at times. Of course, the coast of China, and even Japan. Now, Japan's a little different. The waters are usually much cooler, so usually weekends. But I think they've gotten hit with freeze definitely on these islands, the southern islands. And that's crazy. And Okinawa is definitely exposed, and we got a huge U.S. Air Force base there, which I assume they're probably on standby, so what's happening in the Philippines and in Vietnam, especially in terms of USA efforts. All right. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Different video, and I want to make it that way, just more of an education. I hope this will be up very soon, within the next probably hour or so. All right, thanks.